Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again with Ed Leedskalnin's magnetic generator. Well, I took my voltmeter and I wanted to check continuity with the magnets and the frame, the block, and everything else, this, along with everything, because I don't want the magnets touching anything. They need to be isolated. And they were touching. So I stripped her down, unwound, got this nice set of cardboard. The old cardboard I had on there, I took it apart probably 15 times already, so it's really no big deal. I know what the process is. I put new cardboard in. It's got a thick, nice air layer in the middle. I went across the whole bottom. What happened was the gear ring that's on the lower section here, the cardboard was like just at the edge, so the top part of the gear ring was catching the bottom side of the V-shaped magnets. So lessons to be learned, you know. So here's a V-shaped magnet, and pretty much now I have it extended out way past that guy right there, the culprits. So now we ain't gonna worry about them touching anymore. And then I did the same thing out here. I brought it out, and then also on the inside, I didn't cut the bottom out yet. I'm gonna put all the magnets in place. When I do, then I'll cut out the cardboard underneath there. And then I also brought this out a little bit further here, just to be in the safe zone. Because right now we're gonna work on the circuit system for this Ed Leedskalnin wheel. And what I mean by that is we're going to talk about where some of these wires go. We're going to talk about some of the upper sections, and I think before I start putting magnets back in place, I like to get all these wires connected and stuff. So I started working on this round 1/4 inch thick by 1.25 1.5 inch steel to go around the top, and it is a little hard to be bending this stuff. But for starters, so we're working on the ring, and then I'm going to work on the clover shape top from there. And I got this couple nice rods of steel, same dimension. I'm going to bend that into a clover. I'm going to probably tack weld that. We'll cut it down on an angle so where it's touching. Connect those pieces. And then I'll start applying the wires, which one end of the wire is going to be North Pole, South Pole. One's going to be north, so there'll be a plus and a negative coming out each end of these wires. What I would like to talk to some of you guys out there in the magnetic fields. I noticed that the wavelength on certain frequencies come into play here. So I'm kind of asking, you guys are out there, whoever has experience in building amps and guitar amps and guitar parts and stuff, you have a good understanding outside regular engineering, to go ahead and help me with some of this stuff. So my email's out there. Email me. I have some good questions that I'd like to ask about a couple things. So going back to the top side of the coil is going to be putting out a plus. The bottom side is going to be putting out a negative charge. What I want to do is take that negative charge and split it because every charge has an antimatter to it. So if you have a plus, you got a plus plus an anti-plus, plus a negative, and then also a negative, anti-negative. So what I want to do is split the basic plus and negative, but then split its antimatter on both sides, and then start splitting it from there, because we're going to break it down. Like Ed says, break it down to its source. So we're working on the source here. So we're going to break it down. So we're not really looking to include more pluses and negatives, and that'll come into play here with this pipe and with the pushing and pulling energy, that its job is to mainly keep the wheel turning. And it's going to be doing it on the power that we sent it, and what it's capable of doing. But with that also, we're going to take that power and we're going to induct into the system here, which is going to have its secondary, which coil, which would be this pipe here, and the primary is going to be the core here. And what we're going to do is induct back and forth. One more thing I want to mention to you guys is the bottom part of this core here is the South Pole. So it's putting out a negative charge. And what we're going to do is the bottom part of this coil here, there's going to be a wire sticking out. I'm going to drill a hole in that pipe, and there's going to be a wire sticking out. Well, that wire is going to go to my second ground spark gap, and we're going to have it come out, and we're going to measure how far out from that pipe does it need to be according to this block, and we'll come out with a little ball or something for this block to have its second ground spark gap. So because we're looking to have 3 grounds come into this machine. So you got one here, you'll have one, the second one at the top there where the handle is, and we're going to have to create another one. So you got your bottom part there. One thing I wanted to talk about, one time I was at Coral Castle, and I had someone emailed me in regards to that some of Coral Castle had possibly, if Ed had 10 machines, which he says in his writings, pretty much where are they? So either the Army Corps or the government or vandalism came into play and they took them, or Ed, before he went to the hospital, put them all away. So with that being said, I was very interested if what was underground. So without being able to do what I want to do over there, with some setting some systems down to kind of just check for sonar, see if any cavities or anything, pretty much like a metal detector. But pretty much, I heard a story through some of the, what was it, Joe Bullard or some of the readings, that Ed rode his bike after he purchased the land from the people he was staying with. He rode his bike to the property site, which was obviously 10, 12 miles away from his first location. And that day, Ed was so excited, he rode his bike to work basically on his property. And he just had a couple basic farming tools, and that was it. And the gentleman who Ed was staying with at the time when he had tuberculosis, that couple, he was the realtor guy for that area. So basically, he sold Ed that parcel for X amount of dollars. And all Ed really did was go around and check property for the best perfect property that he could find, that where the coral rock was at the surface. So he didn't want farmland. He didn't want, 6 layers of dirt to dig down to. He wanted where the coral rock was at the surface. So the gentleman that was allowing Ed to stay at his house, at the end of the day, decided he was going to go by there. Ed's got to be tired. He's going to go pick Ed up. Well, when he got to the job site, Ed was just wrapping up. And what he was doing was he was locking down his ladder to the ground. So the guy walked up and wondered, why is he locking his ladder to the ground? He looked down there and he said it was about a 2.5 foot wide, 6 foot deep, 8 foot long trench he dug out, not in dirt, but in coral rock. So that day, and he put 2 anchors at the end of each part of that, and he chained his ladder down to lock his tools in there. Well, that made me think that that spot was either the basement that goes under his house, his living quarters, his workshop, or it was the start of his quarry. So if I was doing that, it'd be the start of where I was going to live, not the start of my quarry. So with that being said, I last time I went to Coral Council, I was there. I poured like a cup of water underneath the motor block there, around where he has that gear at the bottom part of that shaft. And it puddled up, and I said, yeah, okay, well, obviously there's nothing down there. Well, I just looked up top and was measuring something at the top. Looked back down, the puddle was gone. I left a big puddle. And I said, wait a minute. So it was raining at Coral Castle that day, so pretty much all the tourist people, nobody was there, and all the guides were hovering underneath the concession stand. So I grabbed the same cup, went out to a puddle in the gravel, filled it up, and went back in, and I poured it again, and it disappeared quick. I did it again, and I did it again. I did it like 4 times, and all of a sudden it disappeared. So there obviously is a big hole underneath the machine that basically connects the bottom of the machine with a spark gap to the pipe, because on this pipe here, he's got cement up here, and he's got this block in the cement to hold it down, because it needs to be held, it needs to be in one spot. So basically what I have going here is so I can make adjustments, because I'm in the learning phase. That guy was building it already in his head. So if he knew what the ancient aliens knew, what he did know is how to harness natural resources. And he figured out that basically he could take our mechanical know-how, thanks to Henry Ford, Henry Huff, Tesla, and all the greats before that, to put together his knowledge to make it plain and simple, that to show people that you could take energy and use it to provide for itself. You could make mechanical things turn. You could make energy do things on a basis that our normal life is not used to, such as make things invisible. I mean, invisible means what? Your eyes put out positive and negative charge like a projector to an object. It hits the object, it responds back and sends the image back. And it sends a positive and negative with the information back. So if you're able to alter that information and take the waves and stretch them a little bit, then you're able to make things invisible even though they're structurally still there. So guys, this is cool stuff. This is the stuff that we're talking about. Not just, this ain't no damn generator. This ain't no damn electric motor. Come on now. You're killing me with some of the comments up there. You guys, some of you guys are killing me. So, anyway, bam, took it apart, put it back together. Now we're going to start, before I do the magnets, I already talked about it, we're going to put all the metal inside. We're going to figure out on the antimatter about having it come into play with the inside ring, because the inside ring has a round ring with one charge, I think an anti-charge, and then I believe the clover ring, which sits up top, and it comes out and goes around and comes back in. So it's taking this whole wave of energy and it's starting to spin it. Just the same format, and it's given momentum to the centrifugal force that this top-heavy part creates. And I'll tell you right now, I spin the wheel, it slows down almost automatically. It has nothing up top to keep it going, and the crankshaft has, its uniformity to it, where it has its own push force it needs to keep it going. And we're going to take all that, put it on paper. The next video I do, I assume it's going to be metals done, and then we're going to start talking about where to send all the positive and negative, then the anti-positive and anti-negative, and then we're going to even break that down to its anti-positive and negative and break it down. And we're going to break it down going towards the center, bring it out like this pyramid, and then we're going to have it at the top, right on top of that handle here. We're going to have it as the spark gap to the top. Ed did have on his wheel, I will say, it was a metal shaft, and there's a little piece of copper or some material that was dielectric around it. Most of it's gone. So I assume that if you're going to be sending a lot of energy through the top here, I think when you go to turn it, you got to have some gloves on, and you got to get it to a certain RPMs. And once you get that RPMs going, then you balance out the system, and it's able to just take off on its own. And then that's where it's going to come into where the bottom's really going to have to be fastened. But there's a lot of trial and error right now. I do like the fact that this pipe is going to be the secondary from the primary. So we sort of now bring in Tesla's kind of coil in play here, which obviously Ed had to be well aware of what Tesla was working on, since Ed died in 1951. I think 1942, he was sort of all done with his building, and he had time there. I believe that Ed, back in the first place, he at that time may have put all this wheel together and all that. I do know that at Ed's first place, the rocks were smaller and they were all like stacked rock. So, and a couple big boulders. So, big enough to get people's attention, but not like Coral Castle big, because Coral Castle big, he obviously put everything he had into play. And pretty much it seems all come together. But what I really would like to do is get my hands on that Universal Studio video that's out there at Leedskalnin with the girls and stuff, because there's got to be a lot of takes on that. And I bet the takes out there are somewhere. If anybody is watching this that did that video or worked for Universal Studios and knows where I can get the takes off of that video, I bet it teaches us a lot more about not so much moving the rocks, but they don't show anything inside his living quarters. They don't show anything in his work quarters down underneath. So I can use some help with that. And just remember, everything I got is only visits there. I can't dig in the stuff. I can't break out the concrete. I can look in the wheel. I did see these. This right here was dug out in the concrete, and you can see the post, and there's no wire on the post. So I know there's no wire on these big four guys. I can't see into these, but in order to get metal to start doing stuff, you need copper to come into play to get the magnetic forces into play. So we know there's got to be copper there, and each one of these 8, we'll call them 8 little atoms, because they're going to be energy atoms, and pretty much from there we could test and see if we reverse the poles. So the poles are flipping on these little guys, because we can make the poles flip, or we can keep the poles the same, plus and negative, north south, or we can flip them. It might come into play where they get flipped, because you got block connected to the bottom flywheel, connected to the upper ring, connected to the bolt, connected to these bolts. Now these bolts are connected to the metal. There's a gap in between the steel here, and I believe when you get the steel here flowing in energy, it's going to go round, 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 just like Ed's perpetual motion holder. And if you step back and look at this, what you have here is a big U shape. A big U. You see, it's a big U. Alright, a big U right there. And then right up here is going to be your spark gap, which would be the top handle. Every time it comes around, bam, bam. So it's going to be popping. And then your RPMs up there is going to have to be spiking on that. And then what you have is coming down here. You're going to have your secondary spark gap going to the south end of the core. And then you're going to have a third, and then you go over here, you're going to have that little coil. We're going to have to talk about that and analyze that, and I'll need your comments on that little coil, because on the back side of that coil, when we get into it, it's going to have two chains coming out of it, plus a wire that's going to come all the way up and sit on top of the pipe. You got that core here with the copper, and then you're going to have as your secondary, and then on top what you're going to have is either one of those glass wrapped in copper, sort of like the top of Tesla's coil. He's got the dome up there, and have it radiate out. And maybe it's the radiation that comes out of that creates the top lift part of these coils coming up to make that pyramid. Because I've been messing with my guys right here. I got one wrapped in heck, that's got to be 24 gauge, and that's wrapped in big 10 gauge. That one's strong, heats up a lot. That one don't heat up so much, and it puts out a great wave. So we're going to have some experimenting to go. So we got a lot of work ahead of us, and for me to have to tear this apart, put it back together, yeah, it was a little heartbreaking, but you know what, I've done it so many times. Now I know for sure that when I check for continuity with these guys, they're going to be isolated, and that's the whole key here is isolating that bottom magnetic wave. And that's the motor part of this block here. So anyway, Roy checking out. You guys have a great day. Keep following the videos. Leave comments, because I'm reading the comments. And I got a question for you guys. Okay, so how many of you out there think that possibly with this system or something like it, Bendini or whatever, that we're able to make the wheel spin on its own power? Okay, for starters, all we got to do is touch it to a 12-volt car battery and turn the wheel, get it going, and then unplug it, and then it goes. So there's one thing. How many say yay or nay? Secondly, how many people think that something like this is capable of creating a magnetic wave that can be transformed through radio waves with a receiver to find a object to make it levitate, like Ed did with the rocks? Who thinks that's possible? So there's the two questions I'm raising to you guys. Get you thinking. You guys have a great day. Peace out.